right, welcome in. Star Wars Newsnet Live is here. My name's Tyler, along with Miguel and Brian this evening. First off, how are you guys doing?
Very well. Yep.
Tonight we got kind of a loaded schedule. We're gonna start. We're gonna talk in a few minutes just about the tragic passing of Ray Stevenson this week, and how that kind of sent reverbs throughout the whole Star Wars community and beyond, just given the legacy of who that man was and what he meant to a lot of people. Miguel's going to kind of lead us into some scheduling talk in terms of some Marvel shows kind of getting moved around. We're going to talk about that. We have a Phantom Menace editorial that came out a few days ago on Star Wars Newsnet. So we're actually going to talk, a little Phantom Menace as well on the birthday of Star Wars. Nonetheless, a little bit random. And then the big news in terms of Disney Plus that came out today. It looks like Tamora Morrison's coming back to play Captain Rex in the Ahsoka series. So Clone Wars Rebels fans are going to be hype about that. But we can get into, the big news of the week, really, though, the sad, tragic news, Ray Stevenson passing a couple of days ago. I don't know if either one of you want to start and kind of give your thoughts and what you're thinking about the situation.
Yeah, I'll just share quickly my first reaction. First of all, he was 58, which is way too soon. Also, my father's age, which is that hits close to home. But so my first thought was when we finally got the confirmation that was real, because we had a few minutes last even an hour of back and forth, is this real, is this not? There were some Italian newspapers reporting, but we weren't sure. So when we finally decided that it was real, my first thought was, I looked back at the interviews and his appearances at Celebration when he was finally announced to be in Ahsoka, and I just remember him being so excited to be in the show. Mm-hmm. I remember this 58-year-old guy with more gray in his beard than there's black in my hair, and possibly in this age range where you can kind of guess he's doing it for the paycheck. He wasn't. He was really, really excited to be in Star Wars, in Ahsoka, to be wielding a lightsaber. So that was my first thought was he's never gonna see how the fandom reacts to his character and all that.
Yeah, no, I think I got on Facebook the other day when it happened, and I saw the story, and I'm like, "There's no way. This is one of those hoax things." You know what I mean? And like Miguel said, my first thought was he's never gonna get to see it. Everybody dreams about being in Star Wars, and every actor ever has dreamed about being in Star Wars. And I always laugh when headlines are, oh, so would love to return to the Star Wars galaxy. No crap, everybody would, right? And so when you see somebody like that who gets to make that jump, and remember, he was already in Star Wars. He was one of the man. Yes, and so for him to make his live action debut and then to never get to see it is just that's so heartbreaking and so unfair. You know what I mean? You finally get there and then you don't even get to enjoy it.
And just seeing him a month ago at Star Wars Celebration, just charming man, like Miguel said, so excited to be a part of this show. It honestly, whenever something like this happens, I think everyone just naturally takes a step back and reflects on what matters, what's important. And I'm not that familiar with a lot of Ray Stevenson's career, really, and a lot of the other films he's been in. I know there was a lot of people that, he seemed like a great guy, well-respected. It kind of it took me back thinking about several years ago, I had tickets to go meet Carrie Fisher at one of these big cons, and something happened to my car a couple days before. And I was like, I should pay money to get this fixed, which meant I would have to sell my tickets, not go meet Carrie Fisher. I'd already paid for it all. And I was like, I don't need to. I'll go meet her next year. And Princess Leia is probably one of my 2 or 3 favorite characters. And then it was just a couple months later, I'm driving home from the gym and it's like on the radio and it's just breaking news. And like, I just broke down. It just made me think like just him being at Celebration and the people that were there and got to, interact with him even for the first time.
Yeah.
And how that might feel, just especially just like Miguel said too, he's never going to see the final reaction to everything. And just those moments that make me just sit back and just really reflect a little bit. And it's just heartbreaking to see.
Yeah. And I mean, it's like, just like you, it's not like I've been, following him for like 20 years or something. Like I am familiar with the guy. I'm not, super deep into every character he's played, but for some reason it affected me quite deeply for all of that. Like just this is an example, which is the one that I remembered, but there may be more from him, which was his interview with Collider at the press, the red carpet of Celebration, where he was the one that told us that Ahsoka is 8 episodes. Like he was so excited. Like I think he was asked, so how many episodes is it? Is it 8, 6, 10? So he didn't say it, and then in another answer he said, so it's like 8 episodes, and my favorite is all 8. So it was just, I don't know. It did affect me more than I probably expected it to. Like, and again, we haven't seen him in live action Star Wars besides the trailer, so kind of funny that way.
Yeah. I remember that interview, like you're saying, because they asked him which one, would you pick if you had to pick. He's like, you just can't pick one. It's if you pick this one, it means you're leaving out this one. It just it's beautiful coming together. And as a Star Wars fan, when you see someone that passionate and that into a project that a lot of us are really excited about, it really resonates.
Yeah, and Miguel, you were talking about how old he was, 58. Last September, my father-in-law passed away. He was 58. I mean, we were in here, we were in the studio when he passed away, and it was just out of the blue, like just like this, just out of nowhere, and it's a huge shock, and if it's a shock for us, imagine what it's like, for even his family,
because we should also mention it was we don't know all the details about how he died, but it was from what we have heard, it was a sudden illness. Like it was I don't know, I don't think it was a heart attack. Maybe that was everyone's first thought, but the story said sudden illness, that he probably had to be rushed to hospital and didn't make it.
And he's currently, I don't remember what, but they were in the middle of filming something like was he filming something for another project?
In Italy. Right I don't know exactly what. It was probably something independent or low budget.
Mm-hmm. It's just like, I hope that the reaction to his character does his memory justice.
Yeah.
And that people are able to really show their appreciation in some way for what I'm expecting to be an all-out crazy fun adventure from start to finish. And everything that we know about his character right now just screams,
which is nothing.
We see him ignite the orangest lightsaber, kind of do one of these, and then he's fighting Ahsoka, and it's everything I saw right there. I'm like, I'm sold. This is interesting.
And it looks like in the world between worlds too. So
it is. It absolutely is.
Look, it's
so he's also the master of, or a master of sorts of Ivana Sakno's character, which is called Shin Hati, and his character's name is Baylan Skull. And beyond that, like Filoni was very coy about saying pretty much anything. Like I saw at Celebration, I think there was like this one image that hasn't made it into the public, or I haven't seen it, which was him with Shin Hati, with Ivana Sakno's character. just the two of them in the same frame. In what looked like the top of a mountain or some sort of foam environment with where you can see anything else than the two of them. But I thought it was a beautiful shot, but just something that came to mind when talking about him.
Mhm.
And yeah, we pretty much know nothing else about him. Yeah.
Well, I mean, I would say, I think I speak for everyone around here saying that our thoughts, condolences, and like well wishes are with his friends and family too soon. And I can't wait for Ahsoka, and hopefully, Balin Scroll can have a legacy that continues to live on, and Ray Stevenson
Yeah.
lives on through the legacy of this show. Do you guys
And
have?
I'm also sure that they're gonna have some sort of in memory of
Mhm.
statement at least the first episode, if not, or the last one. I don't know.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And he didn't even get to see himself as an action figure. Like that's
Well,
man,
I mean, let's be honest. Given how action figures are today, he probably would have to wait 5 years or so.
probably, yeah, probably.
I'm still waiting on Ben Solo action figures.
Yeah, right.
Speaking, in terms of more Ahsoka news that
Yeah.
came out today, Tamora back and as Captain Rex, which I wouldn't say is a shock to anyone.
No.
I mean, we were
Right.
kind of, expecting the whole band to get back together. When I particularly heard that, I was really excited because it seemed like Tim. I never saw the video that he had in that con a few months ago. I'm sure some of it was made in jest, but it seemed like maybe he was a little bit blindsided, not thinking he might have been in Mando season 3 and didn't get the call. But now he's going to be able to kind of be Captain Rex, which is going to be fun. I don't know, what were your guys' first reactions when you saw, we're going to be getting Captain Rex in the Ahsoka show?
I think it's a no-brainer. This is something I think we even talked about on my podcast a while back that I think I think the reason we got brought up was we were talking about the Heir to the Empire movie and how the original cast is probably going to be there CG. They're not going to be main characters, but they're going to be there because it makes sense for them to be there. And we started talking about Ahsoka and who else we thought could be popping up, and one of the obvious answers was Rex. I mean, it just makes sense with how close Rex and Ahsoka were. We know Rex was still there for Return of the Jedi. Now that they've kind of retconned that character, they've brought him in. He was there on Endor in the film. So,
I thought they said he was.
did they? I thought they made that official, didn't they?
I don't know if they made that official, but I know it's like in the Rebels deal. They're like, Rex fought
because of the beard, and yeah. So
yeah, I thought at some point they said that's not the case, but maybe you have more updated information. I don't know.
I just thought I remember seeing it.
Yeah.
That it was official. Maybe not. I could be dead wrong on that, but it just makes sense that they're going to be there after everything they went through, and and Tamara's been very active in Star Wars recently. Obviously, with Book of Boba Fett, with Mando, made the cameo in Obi-Wan.
Yeah,
with the homeless 501st clone. So it's going to be cool to see him back. I think Tamara Morrison's one of the fan favorites. As far, he's a national treasure. I mean, he's an international treasure, really. But every video you see of him. I saw a video the other day of, I don't remember who it was. They were at a meet and greet with him, and they gave him his own gaffy stick, and he got up and started swinging it around. It was the most wholesome thing I've ever seen. He was so excited. It's so cool. He actually loves the fans. He loves Star Wars. So the fact he gets a bigger role in it, I love it, dude. Bring it.
I mean, my favorite is always gonna be the one with him in the bathtub, like.
The Polynesian spa, he said. That's where actually they're gonna go get Rex.
Yeah, probably.
He's gonna be in the spa. They're gonna have to go drag him out. Like, dude, let's go. We got another mission to run.
That's great.
Try to squeeze into your armor.
And what's cool is too, he gets to. I mean, he can play all these other characters now.
Yeah,
he's not just, his hands aren't tied with Boba. If they ever wanted to do, I mean, they can't really do a whole lot with Django now, but I mean, if they ever wanted to do, a flashback, whatever with Django, even with him in the armor and the voice, that's cool. But he can play every single clone now. I mean, every clone you come across, it's going to have to be him. So, yeah, he's got job security for a little while, I think.
Do you think we could see more than one clone?
It wouldn't shock me.
Yeah.
It wouldn't surprise me at all. And that would be wild to see in live action, like 4 or 5 clones together, the same way like in Rebels when they went.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Yeah.
Yeah,
But
and you see all of them together again.
I mean, with animation, you can kind of get away with it because you can almost like change each one of them just a bit to make them separate. But having his face 5 times on the same shot can be jarring at the very least.
It'd be cool. It'd be really
cool. Yeah. I know. It was kind of the same reaction for me. It was like, no doubt. Like, to me, I don't think this is a huge spoiler, but it depends on how big his role is. Like, if it's just a cameo in a 5-second scene, maybe it is a spoiler, or maybe he's in like 3 episodes. I don't know. I have the feeling that it's gonna be more of the latter than the former, but I don't know. I guess we'll see. Yeah, I'm expecting a lot of cameos and winks to the audience saying, "Yeah, you remember this, you remember that." I mean, it's Filoni. He likes to do that.
Yeah.
Let's be honest here.
There's no doubt. Love him or hate him, he's gonna try to find a way to work every character from Rex to Meeber Gascon from the Clone Wars to some Wagtooth Lerman from season 1 of Clone. Like, who knows what's gonna pop up? He's gonna be like, if this person goes here and we connect him here. That's great.
Lerman, you brought them up. That's wild.
I was just watching. Sometimes I just put on Clone Wars while I'm doing college homework is in the background just to have something on. I look up and Anakin's sick and Ahsoka's talking to like a rolling monkey, on the ground, and I'm like, dude's gonna be in Ahsoka somehow. I just bank on it.
You expected to see Rafiki holding Simba up off of going in the distance.
Oh my goodness. I can't wait. I would love to see more than, one clone. And something I'm excited for is people that are fans of Star Wars animation have these special bonds to the clones, the people that are maybe just saga or live action, lovers haven't really got to develop that relationship and affection. And there's a chance they might get to see kind of the depth and brevity of the clone characters in a way that some animation people have been like clamoring for a while. And it could be a cool merging of some of the different sectors of Star Wars fans.
I mean, let's be honest here. It's not like Ahsoka has too few cooks in the kitchen, right? Like, it has a lot of stuff to do. Like, I mean, I guess it's possible that they dive a bit into the cloning and all that, but it's got so much to do, that show. So.
Well, and that's another thing too. You bring up the cloning. That's really big right now in this. I hate to use the word Filoni verse or in the Mando verse, but in this like time period right now, there's a lot going on with the cloning and
Favreau has said Mando verse publicly.
Yeah. And so having him there and he's gonna end up playing a bigger part in this. Could this be the end of Rex though? Because think about how old he'd be getting at this point with the age acceleration. He'd be.
Well, I mean, it depends on when he shows up. Like when in the timeline. Like this could be a flashback.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Oh, that's true too. Yeah, that's absolutely true.
I feel like he's one of the top guys on my list to kind of go out in some blaze of glory.
Has to
saving someone. Probably maybe Ahsoka or something.
Rex is earned
or Ezra.
And also, some people are gonna die here, so Rex would be a good candidate because I mean, you don't wanna. I don't think you wanna kill. I don't know, Hera.
Mm-hmm.
If you wanna do a season 2, especially, I don't know. Maybe Hera dies by episode 5. I don't know, but
Hera dies now, Miguel. I'm blaming you.
You manifested that.
Vibes into the universe.
How old is Rex at this point? So it's been 35, 50. He'd be what? Close to 80 or 90? I mean, with the growth acceleration, he would be the equivalent of like 80 or 90.
He was already very old in Rebels, which was like 5 BBY.
Yeah, and then this is what, like 10
pushing
10 years later,
15 even.
years later. Yeah, so that's, I mean, to him, to be the equivalent of 30 years. Of course, we don't know how the age acceleration thing works either. Maybe it just,
and also you have the world between worlds, which we're gonna explore. So I don't know.
I think that is going to be a serious conduit to bring in a lot of stuff. That world between worlds.
Possibly. I mean, I guess it's we're at a point where it doesn't really make sense to have any conjectures on this because they can do pretty much anything at this point. And like, maybe we can complain about how old he actually is in the show, and he shouldn't be alive once it comes out. But
right,
I know that now there's really a point to it.
As long as he goes out in a blaze of glory, and he doesn't go down like 99 did. At least 99 went out fighting, but it wasn't incredibly glorious. So
I'm mentally preparing myself because I remember the whole world between worlds discourse that went on, just people either misunderstanding it or misattributing, and I'm just ready for that whole conversation to happen again, just in a bigger scale after it's introduced, depending on how they do it. I'm just like already mentally preparing for the online discourse.
I just wouldn't be surprised if they closed it off by the end of the season.
It's dangerous.
Yeah,
it's incredibly dangerous. I mean, Sidious almost got his hands on it. Rebels, and so can you imagine if he'd gotten his hands on a direct portal to the world between worlds? I mean, there would have been no stopping him. So, but yeah, no, I agree. I think it's probably going to end up getting closed off. But there's a lot coming in Rebels, and I don't think I've ever been this excited. I'm more excited for. Or did I say Rebels? I meant Ahsoka. There's it might as well be Rebels, but I think I'm more excited for Ahsoka than I ever was even Obi-Wan, and I was really excited for Obi-Wan. So,
it's going to be great. It's going to be here in just about 3 months, really, within August.
Yeah, which kind of transitions us into the next topic, which is when is it coming out? So, I mean, this is kind of like the open question right now, right? So, we were told at Celebration that this is going to be in August, but we were also told Book of Boba Fett was going to be December 2021, and it was like 29th of December. So it's like right at the very edge. Also, Mando Season 3 was going to be February 2023, and it was March 1st. So they're always pushing the boundaries there.
Yeah.
So it was announced a few days ago, 10 days ago or so, that Marvel had dated their two upcoming their two shows following Secret Invasion, which is coming out next month, right? So they have Loki Season 2 coming out on October 6th, and they have Echo coming out on November 29th. So there's a couple of interesting things here. First of all, that Loki Season 2 is coming out on a Friday and not on a Wednesday, which is already interesting because Season 1 of Loki was already the first Disney Plus main show to come out on a Wednesday instead of a Friday. They were doing Fridays before, then Loki changed the game, and now it's looking like it's gonna move back to Fridays, which, I mean, it's kind of funny for me in that way, but regardless, that poses the conversation, what does it mean for Star Wars? So we know even from last year where they scheduled She-Hulk and Andor not to be released on the same days, on the same weekdays. They had Andor on Wednesdays and She-Hulk on Thursdays. And I'm pretty sure that this means that Loki and Ahsoka are going to overlap. So, and probably not just for 1 week, because if it was for 1 week, we could have Loki come out on the 13th, and there would be no problem here. So I'm kind of thinking that it's gonna be at least the very last week of August, if not even September.
Have they said specifically with Ahsoka that it's going to be just the simple, like the normal, like one episode a week, like they do with Mando, or might they
I mean,
drop
they haven't.
two
I
here or there? They haven't
assume.
said anything. Because
I
I
assume it's
wonder
gonna
if they
be
might do.
weekly, but I don't know.
That's what
Yeah, they surprised that way with Obi-Wan and then Andor even. I mean, Andor made sense because like you really
Right.
needed the first three to kind of get the gist of what the show was.
Right. See, and then so are we thinking Ahsoka's going to end up being Wednesdays, Fridays? Because you said Loki is going to be Fridays, right?
Yeah,
So probably be Wednesday for an Ahsoka.
I assume so. Yes.
So we've got August 30th, August 23rd, August 16th. It's going to be the latter half of August.
I'm thinking probably the 30th, if not even September, because remember they also said that Mandalorian was going to be February, and then it was March 1st, which is like, yeah, it's technically there, but technically not.
Well, you've got, so it'd be what, August 30th or September 6th?
Probably something like that. Yes,
Probably right along.
I think so.
Yeah.
They also had this story where some site got the news that it was gonna be August 31st, but it was later debunked by Disney reps saying that is not the case, and it was probably a matter of just a placeholder date for them inside. I am guessing they haven't even locked down a specific date. They probably have 2 or 3 possibilities.
Yeah,
and to make room for those possibilities, they probably said, okay, we're going to have Loki on this week and on this weekday specifically.
Yeah, Disney doesn't like to overlap shows on Disney Plus. They want to make sure they're trying to keep everybody on the hook to keep paying their monthly subscriptions instead of dumping everything at once. So
and then there's also another side to that conversation, which is Echo, because Echo is Wednesday. It's Wednesday, November 29th, but it's dropping all at once. So all episodes, which I'm not, we don't know yet how many they are, but all episodes are going to be available on Wednesday, November 29th. So that, that it doesn't necessarily relate to Ahsoka, but it does relate to Skeleton Crew,
right?
Which is coming out right after that,
right?
And also, I am wondering how that could affect. Like, I think with Echo it's a matter of they're not very confident in the show, so they wanna put it out there and get it over with as soon as possible.
Yeah, but
it's probably gonna be an experiment as well for them to see how well dropping a show on the same, all of it on the same day performs. So what could that mean for future Star Wars?
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of where I'm at with all of this conversation. Like, I'm thinking that Skeleton Crew with this news is definitely going to be December, which I was a bit dubious about a couple of months ago. I was thinking maybe January or February, but it's looking like December probably. And yeah, like, I want to hear your thoughts if you have any.
I've been thinking it's probably like a New Year's Eve-ish type time for Skeleton Crew, similar to Boba Fett came out the tail end of the year to kind of spearhead into the new year. I would be curious to see how the binge model works, like with Echo, because I love like the week-to-week kind of releases to an extent, but with Andor, I think it would have benefited from almost releasing like some of the arcs kind of all at once, kind of like how they released those first 3. But I would much rather have the week to week, but maybe here or there for some tiny projects. Like, I mean, they did that with something like Visions, just dropping all the Visions out there at once. And for that, I love that. But I do worry if they do kind of get a little trigger happy with some of these. I don't think they will for their bigger ones, but I wonder if Skeleton Crew maybe, is kind of iffy, kind of in terms of like what they're expecting the numbers to be as it gets closer. Maybe they're like, you know what, we'll just drop the first 3 like all at once and see what happens.
And for a show for Skeleton Crew, you'd almost have to drop several episodes to kind of get people hooked. You know what I mean? I mean, like,
Mhm.
I think with Andor, that was a really good idea. Did they drop 2 or 3 episodes? It was 3
3.
episodes of Andor,
It
wasn't
was 3.
It was
So-
gonna be 2 at the beginning, then they moved the date,
Right.
and then they dropped 3.
Even extra episode is kind of a
Yeah.
yeah. So and then Obi-Wan, they dropped the first 2 episodes,
Yep.
but that was because of Celebration, though, wasn't it?
Well, they announced that way before that it was gonna be.
Okay.
They dropped the 2 episodes like a few hours before because of Celebration.
Okay.
But they had announced that it was gonna be the first 2 a couple of months before.
Okay.
See,
See, what's
still
like
remember that was nuts
when
they said that.
So with Andor, I think it made sense because those first 3 episodes, it was a little slow, and then by the time that 3rd episode kind of kicked off, you were like, okay, you were ready for the
Yeah,
next.
I mean the 3rd one was awesome.
Yeah, it was great. And so, and I think with Obi-Wan, had they shown 3 episodes, and I know Obi-Wan was only 6 episodes.
Yeah.
No, it would have been crazy dropping half the series at one time, but I think had they dropped that 3rd episode, it would have gotten more people to kind of latch onto it a little bit. Those first 2 episodes were pretty slow, but at the same time, it was kind of a good cutoff point for what we have to look forward to in the
I mean, Obi-Wan was probably a matter of they wanted people to talk about Vader.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
Vader wasn't showing up until the very end of the 2nd episode.
Yeah.
So I actually think it was. I actually think it would have benefited Obi-Wan not to do that.
Really?
Yes, because the first episode is so much better than the second one.
I don't disagree. I don't disagree with you.
So
But people are always going to tune in to see when Vader's going to show up. Just the
Vader's
longer you
gonna
let that linger, it just grows and festers, and people are getting a little more antsy.
And with Skeleton Crew, I think do we know how many episodes Skeleton Crew is going to be yet?
I believe it's 8.
8. Okay, so they could get away with doing 2. You're kind of pushing it with 3, but I mean, you'd have to drop a couple, especially when you're introducing all these new characters this way, an entire new crew, basically this new cast, and their kids on top of that. You know, you're going to want a couple episodes to kind of get into it and dip your toe in to make sure this is something you're going to want to tune in for every week, and and everything. So, and that's going to end up being December. And that's going to have to be December, in my opinion. That's just my opinion. If they're dropping Echo, what day did you say? November 29th?
I think it's 29th.
29th. So, yeah,
yep.
I see Skeleton Crew dropping pretty quickly after that. And I don't know, but maybe the first part of December, just so that it's the holiday season. You know, it's the whole family season, you know what I mean? And you've got a show you can all sit down and watch together. There's no Mando. Everybody sits down and watches Mando together. There's no Mando this year for the holidays.
Are there any big Disney feature films coming out around?
Yeah, they have this Wish film, which is the new animated film that they usually drop this at Thanksgiving, and this year is Wish, which is celebrating their 100th anniversary. And in terms of more Christmas movies, none come to mind. No, I mean there's the Marvels in November, like early November. But as far as Christmas goes, I don't think any come to mind.
I was trying to think because maybe if there was some giant, major budget film, they'd want to push all of their chips into that table and maybe give one more week after the holidays. But I mean, they didn't do that with like Mando or anything. I mean, Mando was coming out when Rise of Skywalker.
Yeah,
they merged that.
Yeah, I think there are also like different budgets. Like, this is Disney Plus, and that's
Fallen Order came out at the same time too, right around then.
That was just the most busy time.
Star Wars overload. Yeah.
I didn't get any work done for 2 months. It's okay.
Nobody did. You had to choose between going to the theater to watch Rise of Skywalker or watching Mando that night or playing Fallen Order. And so it was...
I'm a nut. I went to the AMC marathon event. I took 2 vacation days to go to the marathon event. I did that with a friend that flew into town. And then we actually didn't even watch Rise of Skywalker at the marathon event because I had another friend coming in town who wanted to see it. So I left, picked him up. Then we went to go see it straight from the airport. And then we had another friend whose plane got like canceled. They were coming the next day. So I saw that movie like 4 times in 2 days. It was just so much Star Wars. And then it was like, oh yeah, this Mandalorian's going on. Let's check that out too.
Got to beat Fallen Order, and yeah, it was nuts.
Cal Kestis getting my butt whipped by Vader now at the very end. Like,
Right?
oh, it was a good time. Miguel, I had a quick. This is not scheduling related. This is just a random skeleton crew theory. I mentioned it to Brian last time we were on, and we were talking about we feel like Mando, is going to show up in skeleton crew. And given the timeline, as it says, it takes place like right around the beginning of season 1 of Mando, if not a little before. I was thinking we get like the first episode or 2, like Mando in his old kind of beaten down armor, maybe before he gets Grogu and he's with Grogu.
No,
as
wait,
like an
I
intro,
remember the conversation, but was that pre-Mando season 1 confirmed, or was that just you guys speculating?
I was pretty sure I saw like they haven't said for sure timeline wise, but they said like 5 to 7 years after Return, which is around when Mando started, like 5 to 7.
Yeah. So what I have in mind is it's at the same time as the Mandalorian, but whatever that means, we don't know, because apparently now the Mandalorian 3 seasons takes place over 1 billion years. I don't know how many years it is, but it doesn't make any sense anyways. So the thing with Skeleton Crew and doing time jumps, and actually there's one tie-in here, and I'm gonna get to that. But the thing with Skeleton Crew and doing time jumps is that the kids do not age. Like, you cannot have season 1 of Skeleton Crew take place 5 years before season 2 if you shoot them back to back.
Right,
no, because the kids, like, it's very noticeable with the kids, right? So maybe not so much with Mando, but with the kids we can win. Like, Stranger Things doesn't make sense that it's over the course of 3 years. I don't know how many years it is, but if they say it's 3 years, it doesn't make any sense, because the kids are 12 in one season and they're 21 in the last one.
Right.
So
okay. I think it's been confirmed that Skeleton Crew is 9 ABY.
Okay.
Yeah. So I was gonna say
when
about
did Mando season 1 was that?
That
what year was officially that?
5. No, it was
6.
Like,
5 to 6.
Was it 7?
Yeah.
6, 7?
So the thing here is that
I thought it was 5 years after Return of the Jedi.
Oh yeah, I meant 5
put
to
it at
6
8.
years after Return of the Jedi. Yeah, sorry.
Put it at 8 ABY. So no, it'd be 9. That would put it right at season 1 of Mando.
Yeah, so
Season 1 of Mando was at 9 ABY.
I have the stupid timelines book somewhere. I don't even know why I haven't pulled it out. When exactly is this?
So this is where the timeline starts to get messed up, because Favreau has said that, or at least heavily hinted at, that he's gonna use Skeleton Crew characters in Mando season 4.
Okay. Cool.
So I am guessing then that Skeleton Crew takes place shortly before season 4.
Okay.
But again, since they're doing so many jumps with the timeline and
it's
all that,
point, yeah.
who knows? And yeah,
MB
this is
Wilson
actually a
in
very
the
good
chat,
comment about the strike.
Like MB Wilson in the chat said, according to timelines, that Mando starts at 9 ABY.
9 ABY.
So
which is like 6 years after Return of the Jedi, which was what I had in mind.
So so Skeleton Crew starts 9 ABY as well. It's just like I'm just curious, like what it could be 2 months before. I don't know. I'm just curious on.
Yeah,
like we know Mando's going to show up. It's just in what capacity.
What would be interesting that so you guys were saying that you wished Skeleton Crew took place when Mando was not with Grogu, right?
I was saying because I thought they started the same exact year. Like if you could have a thing where in the first couple episodes as a way to reintroduce, it's maybe even days before Mando gets his mission to go get Grogu or something.
What about doing it at the same time as Boba Fett when he's
Make
not
that
with
work too.
Grogu.
Yeah. We could, because what exactly did Favreau say? He said Grogu was with Luke for a couple of
For a
years.
couple of years, yes.
So, man, why did he have to go and say that? Oh man.
I mean, I guess this is probably all a matter of like this is in his head, and he probably hasn't done the math, explicitly. And yeah, he's like, yeah, this takes place here and there, and then nerds like us who know every little detail, can immediately say yes or no. And I think even he followed that up with, guys, please don't take me seriously. Like, I'm speaking out of my ass. Come on.
All right,
it's like the meme of the guy who points at the wall and he's got all these lines pointing to all these images and everything. He's just like, come on. Timeline.
Freaking Charlie Day, and he's like, yeah. I'm gonna look here real quick and see if I'm gonna look at good old Wikipedia because it's reliable. Let's see here. I want to see if I can find where.
Yeah. So in the meantime, there was actually a good comment by MB Wilson about the strike, which is, what if because of lack of content in the pipeline, they decided to push Skeleton Crew into January, February to fill in slots for 2024. Which, I mean, let's be honest, Disney Plus in 2024 is pretty full right now because they have at least, I think, 3 Marvel shows. They have Ironheart, no, even 4. Like, they have Ironheart, they have Agatha, they have Wonder Man, which is in production, and they have Daredevil, which is also in production. These last 2 are post right now, but I can't remember if there's another one. Some animated shows are deep into post as well. And then as far as Star Wars goes, we have Skeleton Crew possibility, and then we have Acolyte and Andor season 2. And even Bad Batch season 3. And Tales of the Jedi also. Which, I mean, that's probably going to drop in one day as the first season did. But
yeah. Okay, so all of Mando so far, all 3 seasons have all 3 been 9 ABY.
According to Wikipedia, and not Jon Favreau.
I know. But this is what's making the most sense so far. I don't know. Yeah, I'm not taking Favreau seriously at what he's saying. Because
I'm a Star Trek fan, and so when it comes to timelines and canon, it's like, I just try to take it all grain of salt. It's whatever. Like,
well, remember this too. Apparently, I mean, it could have been years on that planet. I mean, because look at Last Jedi. The Resistance was running away from the First Order for like 8 hours, but like 3 days passed on Octu for Rey and Luke. So, and even the Timelines book shows those happening simultaneously.
Yeah, but, I mean, that makes sense. Even in Empire, Luke was in Dagobah for weeks.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so I think this is going to be, we just kind of, like you said, take it with a grain of salt and just kind of suspension of disbelief thing and just kind of roll with it.
I mean, I guess it does help that Grogu was with Luke for a couple of years, because, I mean, I guess for us was very quick, but at least that gives the story some weight. I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah, according to Timelines, Mando starts 9 ABY.
Yep, and he went on to say that Timeline says 9 ABY for Mando. So cool, that's helpful. Mine's over there on the shelf. I wish I had it over here. I need to just start keeping my copy like right here. So
take it everywhere you go. Like,
yeah, basically.
You're on date. You just take it out. Oh, real quick question. Page 27 says that. Darth Sidious actually was born, this day.
Right. I'll say this though. There's one thing that book, and I know it's kind of off track, but real quick. So that book disappointed me because there was one thing I was wanting to look into it, and there's a whole 2-page spread for the Skywalker lightsaber, right? And it has the timeline going around the blade. It looks awesome. And so I was like, I want to see if it says in here how Maz got.
Oh, okay.
Like how she got it, and no. It just says like approximately somewhere between 4 and 34 ABY, and it's like
it's a story for another time.
what? Like, well,
I mean, listen, I am a huge sequel trilogy defender, especially TFA and Last Jedi. Not so much Rise of Skywalker, but I was very disappointed. At least Rise of Skywalker should have addressed it because it was JJ again,
Yeah.
But it's a story for another time, I guess.
They broke the cardinal rule with that lightsaber. The rule of Chekhov's gun. If you show a gun, it has to go off at some point in the movie, right? Yeah, and then they just never. That was just a loose end that's just sitting there flapping in the wind, still, like So, like anything, like a one-shot comic, anything, a tweet from Lucasfilm, just something, so that we know how it happened. I don't know. It's just driving me crazy that they were like, "Oh, it's a story for another time," and apparently that other time is never. Never gonna happen. MB Wilson says thanks for the timelines, guys.
Oh my goodness. So we had on Star Wars Newsnet, we had in our editorial come out a few days ago talking about films that influenced the Phantom Menace, and it was actually brilliantly done. I forgot who wrote it for us. Miguel, do you remember off the top of your head?
Yeah, he was by R.S. Lubin.
And it was actually really well done. If you haven't read it yet, you should go on there and look. And even though we're got 40 years Return of the Jedi, we have Star Wars birthday today. Plenty of time. We'll talk about those films at some point. But it's okay to spend a little time on Phantom Menace. I even brought a friend to discuss with us here. Just something I picked up at some things I picked up at the thrift store a few days ago. I love this movie unabashedly, but I just want to know, and I'm a prequel kid. Like these are the movies I grew up with, so I just want to know off the top of your head, like, what is just one random thing that you love about the Phantom Menace or appreciate about it, even if it's not your favorite movie, but just something not necessarily, because everyone loves Duel of the Fates and the fights or whatever. But what's just one random kind of thing?
I really like. It's kind of a behind the scenes thing. So when they did the Mos Espa arena for the pod race, that's a practical shot of all the people, like and it's just a bunch of little Q-tips that are painted.
Oh yeah,
down in chicken wire, and I love that fact. I love that. That's cool. What they used to make that. It's awesome.
That's so cool.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's probably like the Fox fanfare. I'll be honest, I'm not a huge Phantom Menace guy. Like, so I have an interesting history with the film. Like, I'm also a prequel kid. I grew up with them, but first. And I remember rewatching Revenge of the Sith over and over and over again, but not so much the Phantom Menace. And I have this weird memory of seeing it once and not even liking it that much as a kid, so I never really revisited it. And then, a few years later, I watched it again, and I said, "Oh, this is not very good." And then I watched it again a few more times, and I said, okay, it's not that bad, and it got progressively better. And then I watched it like a few months ago. I was with my girlfriend. We were like, she was coming with me to London, so she wanted to go to watch all the movies, and we were watching Phantom Menace, and I was like, no, this is bad. Like, I'm sorry, this is not good.
Pendulum swinging.
So I will be the first to acknowledge that the Phantom Menace is a deeply flawed film.
At least you
I'll also be the first person holding the sign for the Phantom Menace Parade of Joy, and it is probably, I have probably seen that movie more than any movie in my entire life, just because it is also my background noise movie whenever I kind of want to put something on, because at any point I can look up and be interested. And
because it's background noise.
And like, there's a reason I play it for my kids, in school, and we watch that. It's like our end of the year movie that I play. mainly because when I was growing up, that was kind of my introduction to
Yeah.
some degree into Star Wars. All my toys were Darth Maul toys or Qui-Gon toys. And I will say, so my random thing, and it's, I don't know, I think every Star Wars fan has this. This may be, a theory out of my ass, but this is what I think every Star Wars fan has, is there's like a random line in a movie that is not consequential to the actual, I'm not talking like I am your father or anything. It's inconsequential to the plot, inconsequential, but it, whatever reason, just resonates with me. And it's when during the pod race, when Anakin goes up the service ramp thing and he's like in the air and he does this little thing on the side, and Fode and Bede, and he drops right in front of Sebulba and the music just cuts out. And he's like, "It's Skywalker." Every time that happens, I get little chills. So I'm like, that's my boy. And whatever it is, it's the most well-delivered throwaway line in all of Star Wars. I will never hear anything else. I could watch. I played the pod racing game growing up as a kid so much. I have other Phantom Menace toys. I can bring them out, all night long. We'll be out here.
Yeah, please do.
I mean, we got the visual dictionary ready to go.
I got that, yeah.
Do you have? This is actually pretty cool. It's the cross sections ships, and it goes through like every ship, vehicle, droid.
Yeah. It's cool with the Naboo fighter because you see how it splits the astromech droid.
Yeah, and then you have and it just goes through every little part. Like, I didn't know that the torpedo magazine carried twin magazines of 5 torpedoes each. I didn't know that, but now I do.
That's definitely, we had to know that.
Now we all
if I didn't know that, I couldn't enjoy the movie.
Right. See, with Phantom Menace, that's the more material that comes out, the more I appreciate the Phantom Menace. The more novels I read that are around that time period. Even like, Tales of the Jedi, how some of those were happening simultaneoly, and you kind of see what's going on in the background. I've learned to appreciate the Phantom Menace quite a bit. I do enjoy it. Gungans aside, I do enjoy the Phantom Menace. And so it's like you said, it's one of those movies you put on in the background to kind of fall asleep to. But it's also the only Star Wars movie that, if you look at the entire Skywalker saga, that's the only movie you could take out completely and just start at episode 2 and keep going, and the story still makes sense. Like, the events
that is true.
One are completely disconnected really from the rest of the saga.
I think that's part of what I love about it too. Let me ask you this. I mean, Miguel, have you read a lot of the High Republic?
No.
Are you more bigger? So Brian, I knew you're a big High Republic guy.
Yeah.
So I feel like I even have a greater appreciation for the Phantom Menace because of the High Republic, because there's that just the little line that Padme gets when that Palpatine gives to Padme when he's trying to manipulate her and everything, and he just says the Republic's not what it once was. And there's this line, and then you meet with the council shortly afterwards, and they're just very rigid about, the code and what needs to happen, and he's too old. And it just is such a stark contrast from the very proactive Jedi we get in the High Republic, and the very proactive Republic that we get that seems to actually, to some degree, care for the galaxy. And then now we're in this Phantom Menace era. I was kind of watching it, a little bit this week in class, and just like, it made me appreciate the High Republic even more, and almost appreciate the Phantom Menace more because of just how tragic it makes it all. How tragic it.
And even, something, because we're talking about the High Republic, for those of you, there might be, do we talk spoilers for Survivor yet? I'll be
honest.
I guess
I haven't played it yet.
Spoiler, it's in the trailer. So there's in the trailer for the game, we know there's a Jedi from the High Republic in it.
Right.
Yeah, okay.
And he's talking about how, he's upset and he's angry because the Jedi allowed themselves to be wiped out by this like great value empire, right? Like it's this Walmart brand empire to him. And it's like you were talking about, it's a stark contrast between what the High Republic was and what it ended up being, and how slowly over that course, the couple hundred years, they didn't even realize it. They were slowly going downhill. And then when you see, It's kind of like when, the best example I can think of, my son now looks exactly like he did the way he was born, and he's going on 4. But to me, he looks exactly the way he did the day he was born. But when you look at a picture of when he was born and now, you're like, oh, obviously he looked like a potato back then, and now he looks like a human being. And so now, but you don't see the transition. You just see that. And so, it does help with the appreciation for the Phantom Menace to know what came before, and you can actually compare the two, which is why I'm really excited for Acolyte, to actually see some live action High Republic stuff going on and kind of seeing that transition into the Fall of the Jedi.
Yeah, I'm excited for the Acolyte just because it's gonna exist outside the Skywalker saga. Like, please do something,
yeah,
outside of these 60-something years. Like, just, and it's also why I'm excited for Filoni's movie, but maybe it's probably the least I'm excited for because it's in that time period. Like, I think Mangold has the possibility to do pretty much anything he wants, and so does Shermin. But yeah, I mean, like, don't listen to me about Phantom Menace. Like, again, I'm probably gonna watch the movie again next week, and I'll probably like it more than the last time. Again, I'm gonna flip once again. So, and there are even parts that I really enjoy, and even beyond, Duel of the Fates and all that. Like, I mean, Pod Race is a classic of sound design. Like, even if I think that it's not particularly well directed in terms of shots being all the same, left to right, left to right, left to right.
The same little canyon thing, arch stuff every time. And
it is a marvel of sound design. And I mean, that always comes up in these conversations, but it's probably something that needs to be addressed anyways.
And I work with middle school kids, and so I love Star Wars with like my generation. We grew up with prequels, and so I like to hear from my kids that actually like Star Wars, or even the kids that don't really pay attention to Star Wars, but they pick and choose little things. I'm like, okay, what still grips you? And I just think it's cool that the movie's on, they're talking with their friends throughout, but as soon as like the pod race starts, everyone kind of just naturally just sits up and just tunes in just for the next 5 minutes, and then they'll start talking. Then all of a sudden, Qui-Gon's dueling moment is just immediately it's just back up, and it's those little things like that I just love. It's it just continues to make its way through generation after generation.
Yeah.
And also, I want to hear your honest opinion, especially you, Tyler, that you just watched it. Like, do you really think the visual effects hold up? Because I really don't.
So, me trying to craft a positive answer because I love the movie. I will say, I probably not as much as my headcanon wants to say, but I do appreciate the fact that what George went for in those movies, and I think that it really, I kind of appreciate it more as like a paving the way for other things.
Historic.
And so I kind of look at it through that lens, and it's more of this was the start of what came next.
Absolutely, and like Lord of the Rings is my favorite movie of all time. That Gollum would have never happened without Jar Jar. Let's be honest about it. And like that, so many other films that came after Phantom Menace. But even as Phantom Menace was obviously very revolutionary in that aspect, but in many ways, so was the original Star Wars. And I think those effects hold up much better. I mean, special editions and all that, but those effects I think hold up much better than even Phantom Menace.
We need a special edition of the prequels.
Yeah, probably.
Yes.
I mean,
remaster.
I don't know if we can do that.
No, I don't think we can.
Yeah,
we can. Someone.
Well, no, yeah, we can, but
I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding.
Yeah, I don't know if I don't see George giving Disney the go ahead to touch those.
No, I'm pretty sure that when he sold the company, he was like, do whatever you want, do not touch my movies.
Yeah.
Like, and these 6 are special editions, and then the prequels are the ones that I wanted to make. Do not touch those.
Right.
This is random, but I just remembered some kid after Darth Maul gets sliced in half by Obi-Wan. He hasn't watched anything. He's sitting next to this kid that's watched every Clone Wars episode, everything, and he goes, "Oh man, he got him. That's awesome." And he goes, he actually survives that. And he's like, "Shut up! I'm not stupid. Stop trying to like." He's like, "No, I'm serious." And they're arguing about it into the hallway, and I just hear him like, "If you tell me you survive one more time, I'm punch you in the face." Like, and I'm like, and I'm sitting back like he's not lying to you.
Yeah, he came back with some dope and deadly legs. Yeah.
And now where is he? Where is he in between Solo and
buried out in the desert somewhere? But no, like with the visual effects, like we should have known what we were getting when they remastered the special edition for A New Hope. Like when they went and did the special editions in '97, and we had that horrible Jabba the Hutt CGI in A New Hope, and we had the musical number in Return of the Jedi with Cy Snoodle, and it was like, and now we know, looking back, we know now that he did the special editions to see if he had the technology to do the prequels the way he wanted to. I really feel like he should have waited another 5 or 10 years.
I mean,
prequels after that.
I don't know. I don't think
they are what they are. Yeah, it's.
I think the fundamental problem with the prequels and all of them actually is the scripts. Like, let's be honest. Like, he was not the best writer. He was.
You're right.
And even the original Star Wars, like Luke has some very clunky dialogue. Let's be and it's all part of the fun now. Like. The infamous Star Wars dialogue and all that, but and George, I think Phantom Menace was the pure George. I really think that was peak of what he wanted to do, like peak weird, peak children oriented with Jar Jar, peak dialogue that he wants to see on the screen. And I mean, if you guys love it, I love it too. So,
I don't know. I just love the weirder it gets. I don't know. I love weird. And
I don't mind weird. I mind
like I'm a Star Trek,
dialogue.
I'm a Star Trek fan too, and they have these episodes where they're on like the holodeck or something, and it's just these weird out of body experiences. And I'm watching Jar Jar getting choked by Sebulba on the ground, choking on another thing that he tried to swallow. And I just sit back and I'm like, this is my life, and I'm content right now.
This is my life. This is what we.
That was me. That was me watching Luke in Last Jedi. Milking this creature in Act 2.
I love Last Jedi. Oh, I love Last Jedi.
So I don't mind weird, but
is I wonder. So many people, that's why Andor just felt like, I think for a lot of people, it took them a while to attribute that. I think more casual viewers maybe attribute that as Star Wars, just because of how brilliant the dialogue was and how gritty and grimy that show was. I think it took a lot of people like, wait, this isn't the same universe as the Talking Gun
it was probably because it didn't have the fantasy space opera feel, that no aliens, no, it's not just the dialogue. It's way more than that. It's the space opera genre, the overall feel of the show, I think.
There's how many aliens do we really even get in Andor? I know there's a few that are walking around some of the background a few times, but do any of them even have speaking lines outside of like the first episode with the big guy that is that the only one? That's a random question, I know.
No, there was these guys in I think it was episode 11 when right after the prison break, right? The ones that were holding up the ship.
Over there is. They're like talking about the Empire poisoning their GERD or something, whatever they're eating. Vetch, yes.
Yeah.
That's my boy, Vetch.
So you were talking about the Gungans talking earlier. They've even Disney has even kind of subtly, it's not so subtle to some of us, but to most people, it's kind of subtle. I don't want to say retcon, but they've tried to kind of change the outlook of people a little bit on certain things. And the Gungans talking is one of them. I remember there was a scene in, I think it was Last Shot. I want to say it was Last Shot, where Han Solo, this is after Return of the Jedi, Han Solo's with Lando, and they walk, they're on Coruscant, and they walk into this office, and there's a Gungan sitting behind the desk. And Han Solo's like, don't worry, I know how to talk to these guys. And Lando's like, okay. And he walks up and he's like, Weesa looking for this bomb bad admitted, whatever. And the Gungan's just like, we don't all talk like that. That's so insulting. It's just like, they're trying to, ease the blow a little bit with some of the stuff that, was introduced in the Phantom Menace. And if you'll notice, they don't say the word midichlorian. They call it the M count, for the cloning thing. They don't call it the midichlorian.
Yeah.
They call it the M count. So there's certain things where I think they're trying to, like, it's there, but they're still trying to work ways around it to try to make it a little more, the pill a little easier to swallow.
So to me, the thing about the midichlorians, and again, like, I don't think this makes the movie bad. I think it's the dialogue and not being able to pull off such a potential that you have with this story is what makes the movie not so good. But yeah, the midichlorians I have a problem with in the context of Star Wars overall. So my big problem is that in the original trilogy, we were led to believe that this is pure fantasy, that the Force is this mystical field that,
Completely with you. Yep.
Yeah, runs through the galaxy, binds everything together and all that. And then in the Phantom Menace, George basically says, no, it's not fantasy, it's science fiction. So they completely flipped the genre there. They that's what I don't like about midichlorians, that it transitioned from this fantasy
demystifies the Force.
Yeah. Essentially that this is now science.
Yeah.
And I think it is almost the only element in Star Wars that is science fiction-esque. Like, I think you can probably explain everything else with pure fantasy. Like, come on, there's no light speed. Okay, you cannot travel at light speed. I'm just breaking news for everyone watching. It is impossible for an object that has mass to travel at light speed. So I'm sorry about that, but that is fantasy.
It's impossible to hear, dog fights in space. You wouldn't be able to hear any. You know what I mean? So yeah, no, I totally get it. No, the midichlorians demystify the Force. They did, and like you said, that's kind of the one thing that really makes Star Wars. The Jedi are what makes Star Wars stand apart from like other franchises or and whatnot. So when you demystify is what makes them so mystical, and it hurts it a little bit. You know what I mean? And so now I remember what Legends game was it? It was Jedi Outcast, when they were infusing kyber crystals with the power of the Force from the Valley of the Jedi and giving them to what they called Shadow Troopers back then, to basically make dark Jedi, right? Dark Jedi stormtroopers, really. And so I remember there was a scene in that game where Mon Mothma is telling Kyle Katarn and Jan Ors that this is what they're doing, and Jan Ors is like, "But that's impossible, right? You can't just give somebody the Force, can you?" Apparently, if you do a big enough blood transfusion with somebody in Star Wars, so I don't know.
The midichlorians, not a fan. And then I was never a fan of the whole Anakin Chosen One prophecy in general.
Which
was
still
never
is
a fan
kind
of
of
that.
blurry. Yeah.
Just kind of bothers me even a little bit. Instead, it turns it into this. I just not a big prophecy guy, I guess, in general either. I felt like it would have been a much more compelling story to just turn that into just more of a story of Anakin's fall and what it meant to him specifically, the people around him, and then Luke just saving his father versus this foretold thing of someone bringing balance to everything. Right. I don't know. It's not my cup of tea.
And the other thing too, with
Convolutes
demystifying the
everything.
Force and talking about the prophecy came from the Force. So if you demystify the Force, you're demystifying where the prophecy came from, and it's like it's just kind of it's this weird. You're in this weird place where you have a prophecy that they kept talking about in Star Wars that has never really been fleshed out.
So how about how many other prophecies do we have in?
There were several. If you read like Master and Apprentice,
Okay.
Qui-Gon was really into a lot of prophecies. There were a lot of prophecies there.
There's
He
like
was
a hall of
yeah,
prophecy or something that they keep somewhere.
Yeah.
They don't talk about it really in anything else, but
So
Qui-Gon
is that just the one book, or is it referenced somewhere else?
I think that's the main one, because they actually the prophecy is actually written verbatim in that book. They actually wrote out the entire prophecy. Claudia Gray wrote the entire prophecy. That was Master and Apprentice, right? Where that took place?
Yeah,
I'm pretty sure
it was.
I haven't read the book, but Master and Apprentice is Claudia Gray's.
Yeah. So they wrote it all out, but there were some other prophecies also, and there was one prophecy that I think there were some of them where you're like, well, that could have been. I think there was one about Luke and Leia later on, but like Obi-Wan started to read it and Qui-Gon like cut him off or something along those lines in that book, where he started to read it and you knew he was talking about, something way further down there. I think there was a reference in that book to like the Rise of Skywalker or Last Jedi or something, something that happened back that far ahead. Like, I mean, it was crazy. So something about, I think it was a prophecy about Ben, now that I'm thinking about it. I think that's what it was. But yeah, no, there's a whole crap load of prophecy stuff.
Okay.
But anyway,
I appreciate the Phantom Menace for what it is. I think part of the reason I love it, just going back, is it is separate from kind of what you said. It stands alone. It feels much more just low stakes. I don't have to, you get invested, Qui-Gon dies, but you know that's going to happen. Like, you know that it's going to happen, and it's just lower stakes. I don't get, like, if I turn on, A New Hope, I'm on the edge of my seat every time. Is Han going to come back, save the day? Or if I'm putting on Empire, I'm every time just glued in. It's a galactic altering.
I mean, Empire is a pretty much perfect movie, right? Like that is a very tight script that moves along very fast, but never loses track of anything. Like that is
an Empire.
A lot, yeah.
A lot happened.
Yeah. I was just speaking more just how important everything feels versus in Phantom. I'm kind of just, it doesn't feel, because it's so separate. It just feels like it's
I get it.
Like, it's whatever. And it does almost feel like its own thing versus everything else, which, I mean, going back even further, the Acolyte being kind of its separate thing from everything is why I'm so excited, because what I love about Star Wars more than, let's say, like just comparing it to like Marvel or something, is this 25,000 years that they've kind of laid out, infinite possibilities within this. Let's explore those different timelines, those different areas. You can do whatever you want.
Louder, please, because I don't think Lucasfilm heard you.
I will send an all caps tweet, after this.
I mean, come on.
Well, think
25,000 years.
The entire Skywalker saga is over what, like 60, 70 years, something like that. Think of how many 60 or 70 year periods there are in that 25,000.
Exactly.
There's so many freaking, and look at how much stuff has happened in that 70 years.
You know how that is especially noticeable, that they only pay attention to this when they laid out this timeline at Celebration with all the eras that they named, and they gave a symbol to each era. They had the what was it, the Dawn of the Jedi, the Old Republic, the High Republic, and so on.
Right.
And in the Skywalker saga, they have like 6 or 7 out of the 9 or 10 eras that there are. So except for Dawn of the Jedi and the Old and High Republic, and then I guess later the New Jedi Order, there are like 6 different eras in over 60 years. Like, I mean, come on, can we please do that? In the previous 25,000 years or in the million years later.
They'll end up being more in there somewhere.
Yeah. That is my point. Like, they should. This shouldn't be like 6 eras in 60 years. This should be like this one era, that is complemented with so many other across the entire timeline. At some point, I guess, I hope. And for some reason, we're getting Mandalorian season 17.
No, I didn't think of it that way. You're right. Like in 60 years, there's like 6 periods, and then
and then you have
over the
Dawn of
course
the
of
Jedi.
25,000 years, there's 3. Yeah, right. And so,
I mean, I guess it is relevant because everything is centered around this fall of the Jedi and then the Empire. So that is an inflection point in the entire timeline. It's the first time in 25,000 years where the Jedi have lost their battle to the Sith, and now the Sith are taking over. So I get that there are nuances here, and there should be different smaller time periods, but it makes no sense to me that the reign of the Empire is given as much relevance, or rather even the Age of Rebellion is given as much relevance as the entire Old Republic.
Yeah, because it was only a 4-year period, 5-year period.
Yeah.
So yeah, no, you're absolutely right. Yeah.
I'm afraid, and I don't know how big I know we're running short of time, but I don't know how big your fear level is, but I am so nervous if Acolyte just tanks. Let's say it just, you get no people, casual viewers viewing in because it doesn't, for whatever reason, that they're just going to go do some other thing, whether it's Filoni's movie, they say, we have to have this, we have to have de-aged Harrison Ford, like CGI, like Harrison Ford.
It's going to happen.
It's going to happen, but I'm wondering if they up the ante to where we have to make a whole movie series about this just to get that name recognition. If they're first, I'm just scared they're going to say, oh, this didn't work, we can't do anything else with, outside of this.
Mark Hamill just talked about. He just said in an interview that came out today that
someone else.
If it were up to him, they should recast Luke if they were to do a young Luke series, which I really hope they don't do, but that's again the same conversation as
and the fact that they've already de-aged Luke,
but I mean, it was like for half an episode, right? At most.
Right.
This would be like an entire 6 to 10 episodes.
Oh, I got you. Okay.
Yeah, so he's basically saying, okay, you want to follow Luke and Lord Santeca's adventures through the New Republic era.
That's a series I would tune in for. Yeah.
Yeah, you gotta recast. Like, I cannot be there for every day on set, and you cannot have such a...
Basically filming everything with Luke twice.
Yeah, and it's both expensive and jarring to watch.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know. I feel like we've covered so much tonight and just dipped our toes into so many different waters as well.
Yeah, I know. It's easy to go off all these different directions talking about Star Wars.
But you know what? That's part of the fun.
Yeah.
It's part of the fun of Star Wars.
Yeah. Before we go, quick thoughts on Return of the Jedi on its 40th anniversary.
Heck yeah, man. We made it 40 years, man. I remember 20 years ago watching it in theaters thinking it came out 20 years ago and that was an eternity. And now here we are another 20 years past that. And I'm like, geez, man, making you feel older every time a new birthday rolls around for Star Wars. Like, what the heck, man?
So my dad is who introduced me to Star Wars. And I have memories of the two of us going to see Revenge of the Sith together when I was like 8 years old. And like the midnight, back when they did midnight premieres.
I missed
and so two of us went to do that. It was like a special thing because it was a school night. I'm 8 years old, and him and my mom got like, oh, I don't know. And so he was telling me the other day, because I went to go see it in theaters when they did the little re-release here. And he was talking about how he that was like the first Star Wars movie he got to see in theaters when he was like 12, or he was 13, and got to go see it. And he said it was just this crazy experience. Everyone was talking about it, and it was just cool to like kind of he has his experience as a kid seeing it, and he kind of was able to have that same experience with me going to see it, and that love just being passed down, which is something I think is the most special thing about Star Wars, is the generational almost passing of the torch.
I was just remembering the beginning of the documentary on the making of The Rise of Skywalker, where they flashed back to the early days of making Return of the Jedi, and when they thought that they had people picking in Texas, I think it was, trying to see what the new Star Wars movie was gonna be, because it was gonna be the last one.
Star Wars 3, yeah.
Yeah, and that was like the big thing that kicked off the doc. They wanted like now, so many years later, they are making the last one, but not so much because they're gonna make more. And yeah, that was fun. Yeah, I do love the movie. It's probably my least favorite of the original three. But if I even like some of the new movies more, but it is especially the second half. It is truly great. I really love everything that takes place on Endor.
I love Jabba's palace stuff. To me, they spend too much time.
Yeah, to me, the thing about the first hour and essentially everything on Tatooine is that they spend around 45 to 50 minutes of the movie trying to fix the mistakes that they made at the last 2 minutes of the previous movie, where they froze Han and now they have to rescue him. And yeah, it works as an introduction to Luke as a now Jedi Master and whatever, but it was a bit too long, and it slowed down the narrative for me. But once we are past that and we move to Endor and we move to the Emperor ship, and still the greatest outer space battle in the entire franchise. The last hour and 15 minutes of the movie, it's just amazing filmmaking.
Once Luke and Vader are together, it's
probably
my favorite stuff
lightsaber battle
ever.
I mean, the Emperor throne room is just it really is a classic at this point.
Yeah. No, and can you imagine going? You were talking about your dad going to see Return of the Jedi, Tyler. Can you imagine going to see a Star Wars movie nowadays and going to a midnight release for it, and there's no social media? Can you imagine, like, just everything's word of mouth? There's nothing. There's no Facebook. I mean, because even when Revenge of the Sith came out, I mean, we early days of Facebook, right? Then we had MySpace, but that was, I remember going and seeing Revenge of the Sith midnight release. And I guess it wasn't really fair because I'd already read the novel, because back then the novels came out like a month in advance.
Right.
I'd already read the novelization and I'd already played the video game like 2 weeks before that. It had some scenes from the movie because I couldn't wait. So I remember being a teenager when that came out, and I remember talking to this guy in line because we were standing outside the movie theater, and I casually mentioned, I'd already read the book and played the game, and he's like, "Oh, so you already know what's going to happen." And turned around, walked away, and I remember like being pissed that he didn't want to talk to me anymore. But now that I've gotten older, I'm like, oh, I was a punk kid. Like, I totally get it now. Like, I understand why you walked away. Totally get it. But
you're one of those kids that I'm teaching that comes in, and I'm like, haven't seen the movie yet over the weekend, and it's like, hey, Mr. Bradshaw, you remember? Can you believe that happened today? And I'm like, you got detention for a week, bud. Like, come on, get out of here. To some degree, like with the social media, I was like 8 when Revenge came out, and so I wasn't on anything at that point. Like, I'm like 8 years old. I just had my little Attack of the Clones backpack still from a few years ago. And I just remember telling all my friends at school, like, I'm going to go see this movie tonight. Like, everything. And everyone's like, oh, you might. And I get to school the next day, and none of my friends had seen it. And it's stuff I still remember. It's like the only memories I have from when I'm like 8 years old is kids saying, did they really fight? Like what happened? Like, what did it go? And I'm just like, me at the time, no filter. I'm just telling them everything that happened, I'm just like, yeah, it was pretty nuts. And that's the closest I can think of. Now it's like you go see a movie and you have to turn your phone off because you don't want to see it. Like, you have to just go dark for a while.
What was that Simpsons scene where they went and saw Empire in theater for the first time? And as they're walking out, he's walking past everybody in line to get. He's like, "Man, who would have thought that Darth Vader was Luke Skywalker's father?" Everybody's like, "Oh, come on, man, are you serious?" It's like, what?
That was even bringing back memories from 2015 and watching Force Awakens. Like, I wasn't super tuned into the social media or even the entire pop culture conversation back then. So I was just very very excited to see the movie. I was I was in last year of high school, I think it was, just chatting with friends. So when are you seeing it? I'm seeing it on Sunday. So oh, you've seen it already? Oh, don't tell me anything. It was like, and 1-2 years later, everything was different for me. I was just way more into like social media and all that. Not necessarily social media, but more tuned into what was being said and
Right.
reported and everything. And even for the Last Jedi, I remember tuning out everything like the month or 2 months before the movie came out, so just not to be spoiled of anything.
Right.
My uncle actually is a huge Star Wars fan, and he passed down to me all the original action figures he got as a kid. And so I actually have just tons of these just OG 1970s, 80s action figures from.
You're gonna like this.
Oh, I love this.
You're gonna like this. Oh, I got a few of them.
Oh, that's awesome.
So, yeah.
And I mean, I just still had those, and I mean, I'm playing with them as a kid, and like I love the originals, and seeing the Return of the Jedi panel at Star Wars Celebration for those that were able to be there was really special. And then I appreciated. I want to meet Ian McDiarmid so bad. Like he's my if he's in a con anywhere near me or something. I was a little bit. I'm excited for the next celebration. Hopefully Japan's great and amazing, but it's one of those places for me personally. It's been really hard to get there, and I've never been able to go to a celebration. So I was hoping the next one would be stateside. I'd be in a position to go at this point in my life. And so that one though is a little bit more difficult. But I start thinking, where is Ian McDiarmid going to kind of be at a public event next? Because he's kind of the guy that I really want to just meet and just be able to say thank you and kind of get that like photo op with, because you never know with some of these legacy actors.
Yeah,
it's just and so it was really cool just to see them all together, like Warwick and Ian and Billy D. It was really fun. I was glad we got to see it. And even Harrison even had his little video that they showed at least, and it is special. And my friend got married recently, and right before he went to his wedding, the night before he was getting married, we actually went to go see it together. He's a big Star Wars fan. So anyway, I love the movie. It was great.
Yeah, I didn't get the re-release here. That sucked. I would have definitely been to the re-release.
Yeah, it was nowhere around me. I was kind of mad. I just pulled out. I was so mad. I just came into my studio and I sat down with my despecialized edition of Return of the Jedi and put it in. And
you're telling me I listen to the song,
Yeah, the old style one. Yeah, the old one before all the CG, the Chickamauga, hey, before all that crap got put in. and it had the original Yub Nub in it at the end.
I don't mind the new one, to be honest.
I don't mind either. I don't mind the new one, but it's just something about hearing the Yub Nub is just, it takes me back to when I was 7.
That, seeing it, but I've only heard nostalgia-based arguments around that song, not its place in the movie or its actual meaning. It's mostly nostalgic. People being nostalgic about it, rather than being real about what song fits better in that scene. But
Brian, do you prefer, in terms of the end scene, like the original actor that for Anakin coming in as the Force Ghost, or do you prefer the one now they have where it's Hayden, as the Force Ghost?
So I get why George switched him out. I get it, because he wanted that connective tissue between trilogies. I get why he did it. It makes zero sense. Why would your Force Ghost, and he's explained it off in a way where he's like, well, only Jedi can have Force Ghosts, and so his ghost stopped aging when he became a Sith. So when he turned back, his ghost was still, he was his young self again. And I get it. And in canon, they've kind of talked about how the ghosts can kind of decide their own kind of appearance as they're manifesting or whatnot. I still wish they would have stuck with the original actor. I feel like if you met your father, right, and your father was Darth Vader, you went through everything Luke did, and all of a sudden this ghost of this young guy appears, you'd be like, who are you? Like, what the hell? So to me, it just makes sense to have the older version. However, I mean, now they've kind of, and this is a really roundabout way of saying this. In Rise of Skywalker, you hear young Obi-Wan in the Force. You hear the ghost of, Ewan McGregor instead of Alec Guinness. You hear both. So why couldn't they all, kind of appear at the same time? However, okay, so hang on. I know this is a really long your question, and I'm so sorry. In Shadow, because I'm really excited about this. It was really cool. In Shadow of the Sith, when Anakin appears to Luke as the Force ghost, the ghost is like flickering back and forth between the old version and the young version. So both can exist. It's just, I guess, in that particular scene, it was Hayden that came through instead of Sebastian. So
that scene in the book is, oh my god,
it was so cool. Yeah, it was so cool. It was really cool. But it was a nice little nod to it. I was hoping that they would do something with his ghost instead of flickering back and forth between young and old Anakin. It would be like young Anakin and like burnt Anakin, like flickering back and forth, kind of like, like a jittery hologram, kind of, but no, I didn't get it. But I'm happy with what I got. So I prefer to, in a roundabout way, to answer your question, original actor.
Okay.
The original actor.
I don't. I remember we had the VHS tapes of the originals when I was a kid. I still remember. They're probably still somewhere in my parents' house. I would imagine
VCR somewhere that'll never get turned on again.
Yeah, they'll never get used again. But it's like we have them. Yeah.
I've got Empire and Jedi on Laserdisc, but I don't have the original Star Wars on Laserdisc. I need to find it just so I can complete the trifecta. I didn't even know what a Laserdisc was when I bought them. I thought they were vinyls. To be completely honest, they were in the box of vinyls at an antique shop. I thought they were the soundtracks on vinyl. And I'm like, I'm going to buy these. And then I get them home and I'm like, are these CDs? What the fuck? Like, what are these? And so I had to Google what a fucking Laserdisc was. I'm like, oh, whoa. And I paid like $1 a piece for them. And I was like, this is so cool. So even thought about getting a Laserdisc player just to try them.
I found this. This is really great. I found this for $3. It's already framed. Boba. It was like
Empire
$3.
Boba. Heck yeah.
It was $3. I was like, this person doesn't. I mean, it's just a random. It's a random print, but it's already in the frame. I'm like $3. She said, she's like $3. I'm like, that's
well, anyway, you guys ready to wrap this up? We've been going like an hour. So anyway.
Yeah. All right. Well, Brian, Miguel, this was awesome. I always like chatting. It was nice to actually, Brian, we've chatted once before, but I've never really chatted with Miguel before.
Yeah.
So it was nice to get to know you a little bit and actually I've seen you sometimes when you've popped on different things, but it was cool to have a little bit of a dialogue. So appreciate it.
Heck yeah, man. It's always fun to get on here and talk Star Wars with you guys.
Yeah, same.
Always.
And then Brian, you'll be here next week?
Yes, sir. I'll be here, and I'm pretty sure. I'm thinking Paul's going to be on next week.
Yeah.
I think we need a third person with me and Paul, because Paul and I we start arguing about
That's what I like. Sometimes I like watching you two get after it.
Dude, last week, man, we were really getting after it. But after we go live, like after we end the live, even after like last week, even then we were like, dude, that was a cool chat. Way to go, man. Like it was a lot of fun. So we get a little heated. It's because we're so passionate about where we're standing on certain things. And I know he's got his reasons for liking what he does, and I've got my reasons for liking what I do. And it's a lot of fun. So I think it's going to be me and Paul next week. We might need a third person if we start talking about Ray. So we'll see. But yeah, we'll be on next week. It'll probably be me and Paul.
That'd be awesome.
Or if anybody else wants to join, you guys are more than welcome to try to be the mediator between us.
Yeah. We'll talk.
That'll work. Yeah. So all right. Well, if we ain't got anything else,
good.
Want to say thank you to everybody who joined and talked with us tonight. That's been a lot of fun talking with you guys. And we'll be back next week. So until then, may the force be with you guys.
See ya.
Bye.